First thing, before we get started into this week's topics, I just want to do a quick plug. This week we're going to be officially launching the Frankie and Jack's channel. So if you could look for that in the description, we're going to be talking about a whole range of things from music to movies to TV shows. I mean, it's going to be kind of endless general things. So if you're a fan of this channel and a fan of Making the Walk, subscribe to that channel. We'll be doing our first live stream on, I think, Wednesday. I think it's going to be 9 p.m. UK time.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you, Eastern or?
Central, 3 p.m. Central. 4 p.m. in Eastern.
Yeah, so 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern is when we're going to be launching that. So yeah, in this first topic of the day, we're finally going to get to talking about the MMA Guru, kind of. We have avoided talking about him for numerous reasons. Considering how we've addressed fighter pay and the antitrust issues, I feel like things have kind of naturally aligned for us in terms of talking about both. This is a very important topic for this channel. I cannot understate this. So the Guru has taken this head on and stated that in 2025, he's going to be starting a sort of fund to address a number of issues in the area of fighter pay. So he's talked about fighters that get robbed lower down on the card, fighters that miss out on win bonuses by being lower on the card, and fighters that get gruesome injuries that what most don't really know are not covered by the UFC in terms of medical. So, firstly, what did you think of this? And secondly, are we finally getting to the point now where the UFC can no longer act like this man doesn't fucking exist?
Well, one, I think that it kind of echoes kind of how we feel about fighters and fighters not getting the treatment that they deserve for all the work and sacrifice that they put in to the sport. Not to say that the UFC doesn't care about fighters, but they put their care goes in levels. So it depends on what they've done for the UFC as far as how much they care. So for Guru to put theoretically his money where his mouth is when it comes to supporting the fighters, especially the ones lower down on the card, the ones that get neglected, like, I applaud that for sure. Like, I like that line of thinking. And for the UFC, like, he's come up way too much for them to ignore him at this point. He's starting to filter over into UFC type of content, where he's being brought up at press conferences, in the cage, and, what he did for Sean Strickland as well. So, I mean, they can't ignore this dude at this point. Like, he's got too much going in his direction. And plus, getting behind the fighters individually, that's going to push his narrative and push his name out there even more. While I don't agree with a lot of the things that he says, I don't have to. Like, I respect what he does and what he brings to the table. A lot of people, I think, feel like you have to agree with everything that everyone said that person says to be supportive of them, and I don't think that that's the case at all. I think you can be supportive and disagree with some things here and there. So, but this particular thing I agree with. Yeah. This particular thing I definitely agree with. And if he's able to pull that off, like, that's massive, man. That means a lot.
Yeah. Firstly, like, whether this is actually viable or not, and whether it actually happens, I'm not really going to address too much because time's obviously going to tell on that. It's probably going to be a bigger undertaking than he may even realize, because the amount of financial implications that are going to be involved is going to be substantial. I mean, I don't know how much the guy makes on YouTube. I assume it's significant for him to even be considering this. But I think it seems like it. Even raising this, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's doing very, very well. I think raising it at all is brilliant considering the level of his profile. I've spoken about this before, but I was actually an early subscriber to his channel, and I got into this very thing with him in the chat on the live stream years ago. He was pretty young in the game, and he essentially called me retarded for making the point that UFC fighters are grossly underpaid, which is a bit ironic. But obviously, clearly his position has changed over the years, and for someone with, as I said, a massive profile as he does in the MMA space, it's huge that he's addressing this head on. Now, I think him talking about this is big in how it brings eyeballs to what is a serious issue in the space that, let's be honest, like the majority of the audience either don't know about or don't give a shit about.
Yeah.
We know that the UFC is by far the most profitable combat sports entity in the game, as highlighted by Forbes and the video that you made about that. And obviously, Dana rubs it in our faces every weekend by stating that the company breaks a gate record every week. I mean, we hear about it enough. Yeah. Yet, when the fighter John McDessie, I think it was, shared his payslip, it revealed kind of a massive disparity between what the UFC is making and what's going on with the fighters. So, for example, we found out that the UFC, they obviously tell the fighters when and where to fight, but then they're deducting airfare. They're taking medical deductions in a sport where you're being paid to go in there and fuck each other up. Like, explain that to me. They also get license charges removed also. Get this as well. They also get medical testing they need to do to get them cleared, removed from their payslip as well, and essentially to go in there and kill each other. Now, if you don't see all of this as fucked up, when a guy is getting paid $12,000 at the low end, and that's before they pay for nutrition, manager fees, training camp, etc., then I don't even know what the fuck to say to you at this point.
What are you, retarded? I know you're not retarded.
So if the MMA Guru actually goes ahead and brings this initiative into fruition, not only can he no longer be ignored, and it thrusts himself into the mainstream, but it may actually force the UFC, out of sheer fucking shame, to address this bullshit. Now, is he going to follow through? As I said, time will tell. And he must clearly have the means to, as I said, because he's going to be called out for this if he doesn't. Like, if he says this, he's got a big enough fan base now, and he's got enough detractors as well, where if he doesn't do something, he's going to get called out for it. But as a move in general at this point, I think it's fucking brilliant. And I hope it leads to what should ultimately happen. And that's better circumstances for fighters and the pay. And what it does for him entering the mainstream could be a nice byproduct of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, if he doesn't find a way to follow through with it, he's trained his audience to be very, very vicious in response to a lot of things. And they will do that to him if he doesn't follow through with something that he put out there like that. So I hope that he does. I hope that even if he can't, from his own financial means, he uses his platform to pull in other people who do have those means, because I think it's a great idea. And it feels like it's the only way that we as people who support the first person that opens the curtain, for a fight as much as the last person. Like I hope that this is something that can kind of push to help support those types of people, because like fighting for 12 and 12, making $24,000 if you win, sounds like a lot, but it ain't a lot. It's not.
I'd be amazed if you break even in that situation.
Yeah.
Especially if you lose.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's exactly what this is about. I think if it helps, I think you've ended it very well there in saying that if this helps out the fighters or balances things a bit more for the fighters that are opening the cards and on the lower end of the pay scale, it's going to be wonderful for the sport, ultimately.